The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was bigger than anything Daniel Cole had ever seen. It stretched for 3 kilometers in every direction, built from crystals that glowed with soft blue light. The ceiling was so high that clouds actually formed near the top. 47 alien species had sent their representatives here, and they all sat in rising rows of seats that curved around the central platform. Like a giant bowl, Daniel stood alone on that platform. He was the first human to ever address this council. His hands were sweating inside his formal gloves, but he kept his face calm. He had practiced this moment for months. Earth was counting on him. Humans had only been traveling through space for 63 years. That was nothing compared to some of the species in this room. The Valthorians had been building starships for 12,000 years. The Luminari Collective had existed before Earth even had dinosaurs. To them, humans were like newborn babies trying to walk. High Chancellor Zareth rose from his seat at the highest point of the chamber. He was terrifying to look at. His skin was black as coal and seemed to absorb light. He had 6 eyes that burned like orange flames, and 4 arms that moved with unsettling grace. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the hall like thunder. "Humanity," Zareth said, "your expansion has been noticed. You have built colonies on 17 worlds in just 6 decades. The speed of growth is concerning to the Council." Daniel wanted to argue. 17 worlds was nothing. The Valthorians controlled over 800, but he stayed quiet and listened. "We are prepared to offer Earth full membership in the Galactic Council," Zaroth continued. "This is a great honor. You would gain access to our star maps, our trade networks, and our protection. Many species have waited thousands of years for such an offer." "We are grateful for the consideration," Daniel said carefully. "What would be required of us?" Zareth's thin lips curved into something like a smile. "Your military fleet must be reduced to 12 ships. Your colony worlds will accept council governors to oversee their development. And all weapons research programs must end immediately." Whispers filled the chamber. Many delegates nodded their approval. Daniel felt his stomach drop. "There's one more thing," Zaroth added. "To encourage your cooperation, we have positioned a fleet at the edge of your solar system. 3,000 warships from 12 council species. If you refuse our terms, Earth will be cut off from all outside contact. Your supply lines to your colonies will be destroyed. Within 2 years, your people will begin to starve." The chamber fell silent. Every alien I turned to Daniel, waiting for his response. He could feel the weight of their stares pressing down on him like a physical force. 3,000 ships. Earth had 216 vessels in its entire fleet. The math was simple and brutal. If it came to a fight, humanity would be wiped out in days. "I must consult with my government before giving an answer," Daniel said. His voice came out steadier than he felt. "This decision affects all of humanity. You have 72 standard hours," Zaroth replied. "The Council will await your response. Choose wisely, Ambassador. The future of your species depends on it." Daniel gave a formal bow and walked out of the chamber. His legs felt weak, but he forced himself to move with confidence. He would not let these aliens see him afraid. The moment he was out of sight, he'd broke into a run. His ship, the Endurance, was docked at the station attached to the council building. It was a small diplomatic vessel, nothing compared to the massive warships that filled council space. Daniel burst onto the bridge and immediately opened a secure channel to Earth. Secretary of Defense. Lisa Morgan appeared on the screen within seconds. She was an older woman, with sharp gray eyes and silver hair pulled back tight. Her expression was grim. "We saw everything," she said. "The president is meeting with military leadership right now." 3,000 ships, Daniel said. "Lisa, we cannot fight that. It is impossible. Numbers are not everything, Ambassador." Daniel stared at her. "What do you mean?" Lisa leaned forward. Her eyes held a strange light that Daniel had never seen before. "There is something you need to know. Something that has been classified above your clearance level. Until now, tell me. Humanity has been preparing for this moment for 40 years. Since the day we first detected alien signals and realized we were not alone in the universe." Daniel felt cold. "Preparing how?" When we learned about the other species out there, we knew this day would come. Older civilizations always try to control younger ones. It is the pattern of history, both on Earth and in the stars. So we made a decision. We would never be caught helpless. What did you do? Lisa smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We built things, Ambassador. Things the Council does not know about. Things that will change everything. Before Daniel could ask more questions, another face appeared on the screen. It was Admiral Christopher Hayes, commander of Earth's military forces. He was a tall man with graying hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Ambassador Cole Hayes said, "You did well in there. You bought us the time we needed." "Time for what?" Daniel demanded. "Please, someone tell me what is happening." Hayes and Lisa exchanged a look. Then Hayes nodded. "Come home, Ambassador. There is something you need to see. Something that will show you what humanity is truly capable of." The channel closed. Daniel stood alone on the bridge of his small ship, surrounded by the vast darkness of space. Somewhere out there, 3,000 alien warships waited to destroy his people. But for the first time since entering the council chamber, he felt something other than fear. He felt hope. Daniel gave orders to his crew, and the Endurance began its journey back to Earth as the ship jumped into faster-than-light travel. Daniel stared out the window at the stretching stars. Humanity had always been underestimated. Throughout their history, small groups had defeated larger enemies through cleverness, determination, and sheer stubborn refusal to give up. The Greeks at Thermopylae, the colonists against the British Empire. Over and over, humans had faced impossible odds and found a way to survive. Maybe this time would be no different. Daniel did not know what secrets waited for him on Earth, but he knew his people. They did not surrender easily. They did not accept defeat without a fight. The council thought they were dealing with frightened children. They thought humanity would bow and submit like every other young species before them. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Endurance flew through the darkness between stars, carrying Daniel Cole toward a truth that would change the galaxy forever. Behind him, the council waited for an answer. They were certain they already knew. They expected submission. They expected fear. They expected humanity to beg for mercy. They would get none of those things. Instead, they would get a response that no species in 10,000 years of galactic history had ever dared to give, and nothing would ever be the same again. Deep, beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a place that did not appear on any map, Admiral Christopher Hayes walked through a metal corridor that hummed with strange energy. The air itself felt different here, charged with something that made the hair on his arms stand up. Walking beside him was Dr. Maria Santos. She was a small woman with dark hair and eyes that sparkled with intelligence. For 30 years, she had dedicated her life to a project so secret that fewer than 200 people on Earth knew it existed. "The Council believes we are children," Maria said as they passed through another security door. Guards with weapons Daniel had never seen before nodded as they walked by. "They look at our 60 years of space travel and think we know nothing. They do not understand what drove us to the stars in the first place." "Fear," Hayes said simply. "Yes, fear." Maria nodded. "In 2047, we intercepted our first alien transmission. That day changed everything. We learned that the galaxy was ancient, crowded, and dangerous. Every other civilization out there had thousands of years of advancement over us. We knew that someday someone would come to our door with demands, and we decided we would be ready." They stopped at a massive door made of metal so thick it could have stopped a nuclear blast. Maria pressed her hand against a scanner. The door slowly began to open, and bright light spilled out from the other side. Hayes stepped through, stopped breathing for a moment. He was standing at the edge of an underground hangar, so vast he could not see the end of it. The ceiling was hundreds of meters above his head, carved from solid rock and reinforced with materials that gleamed like silver. Lights brighter than the sun illuminated everything, and filling that impossible space were ships. Hundreds of ships, but not the vessels Hayes knew from Earth's public fleet. These were different. They were angular and aggressive, built from dark metal that seemed to drink in the light. They looked like weapons given form. "The Shadow Fleet," Maria said quietly. 412 warships. Each one carries technology we have never shown to anyone outside this mountain. Hayes walked forward in a daze. He reached out and touched the hull of the nearest ship. The metal was cold and strange under his fingers, unlike anything he had felt before. "How is this possible?" He whispered, "We have been busy." Maria smiled grimly. "Every piece of alien technology that ever reached Earth, we studied. Crashed probes, intercepted signals, abandoned equipment found drifting in space. We took it all apart and learned its secrets. And then we made it better." She pointed to the nearest vessel. "These ships use quantum slip drives. They can cross the entire galaxy in hours instead of weeks. Their weapons manipulate gravity itself, crushing targets from the inside out. Their shields exist partially outside normal space, making them nearly impossible to hit." Hayes tried to process what he was hearing. The Council species share technology with each other. They have had thousands of years to develop, but they stopped trying. Maria led him deeper into the hangar. "When you are the biggest and strongest, you become lazy. You stop innovating. The Council species reached a balance centuries ago. They have not truly advanced in longer than human civilization has existed, but humanity never stops pushing forward. It is in our nature." They reached a control center built into the side of the cavern. Screens showed maps of the galaxy, troop movements, and data streams that scrolled too fast to read. Dozens of technicians worked at stations, monitoring systems that had been decades in the making. "There is more," Maria said. "The Shadow Fleet is just the beginning." She pulled up a holographic display. It showed Earth's solar system, but with thousands of red dots scattered throughout the asteroid fields and orbiting the outer planets. "Weapons platforms," she explained. "Hidden in plain sight, each one capable of destroying a capital ship. We have similar networks around every human colony world. The Council's sensors have never detected them." Hayes stared at the display. "What else?" Maria hesitated. Then she pulled up another screen. This one showed locations scattered across the galaxy, marking Council shipyards, population centers, and agricultural worlds. "We call it the contingency," she said. "For 40 years we have been positioning assets throughout Council space. Sleeper ships. Automated weapons. Things that can be activated with a single signal. You're talking about striking their homeworlds. I am talking about making sure that if Earth falls, we do not fall alone." Maria's voice was hard. "Mutually assured destruction. If they try to wipe us out, we take them with us. Every Council species. Every major world. Everything burns together." Hayes felt cold, despite the warm air of the hangar. "This is madness. This is survival." Maria turned to face him. "We did not want it to come to this. We hoped we could join the galactic community peacefully, prove ourselves through trade and diplomacy. But we always knew the older species might try to control us. We prepared for the worst while hoping for the best." A communication screen lit up. Ambassador Daniel Cole's face appeared, looking tired and worried. Ambassador Hayes said, "Welcome back to Earth. I trust your journey was smooth."
"Admiral."
"What is happening?" "Secretary Morgan told me there are secrets I need to know." Hayes looked around the massive hangar at the rows of deadly ships that represented humanity's hidden strength. Then he looked back at the screen. "Come to these coordinates, Ambassador. It is time you learned the truth about what humanity has been building, and then we need to plan our response to the Council." "What kind of response?" Hayes allowed himself a small smile. "The kind they will never forget." The communication ended. Maria began preparing briefing materials, while technicians ran final checks on the Shadow Fleet in docking bays throughout the underground base. Crews were boarding their ships and running through startup procedures. For 40 years, this moment had been a distant possibility. Now, it was here. The Council had given humanity an ultimatum, expecting easy submission. Instead, they would receive the shock of their ancient lives. Hayes walked among the ships of the Shadow Fleet, feeling their quiet power, Each vessel represented years of secret work, countless sacrifices, and the determination of a species that refused to be conquered. The galaxy thought it knew humanity. They saw a young species, barely out of its cradle, easy to intimidate and control. They were about to discover how wrong they were. Above ground, the sun was setting over the Rocky Mountains. But deep beneath the earth, a new dawn was about to begin. A dawn that would change the balance of power. In the galaxy forever, the Council wanted an answer from humanity. They were going to get one. Admiral Korath of the Valtharian Dominance stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, the Eternal Fury. Through the massive windows, he could see the assembled might of the Council fleet stretching across the darkness of space. 3,000 warships from a dozen species, bristling with weapons that had conquered hundreds of worlds over thousands of years. The human homeworld was just a few hours away at standard travel speed. A small blue planet orbiting an average yellow star. Nothing special. Nothing important. Just another young species that needed to learn its place in the galactic order. Korath's scales rippled with satisfaction. He had done this many times before. Young species always talked big at first. They spoke of freedom and independence and pride. But when they saw the Council's military power arranged against them, they always surrendered. They always submitted. It was the natural way of things. The humans had 40 hours left to give their answer. Korath expected they would give up within 20, perhaps even sooner. Their ambassador had looked terrified in the council chamber, as he should have been. His tactical officer suddenly made a sharp sound of alarm. "Admiral, our sensors are detecting anomalies. Multiple spatial distortions forming inside our formation." Korath's eyes narrowed. "Explain what you mean." Before the officer could respond, space itself seemed to tear apart. Points of brilliant white light appeared throughout the council fleet, scattered between the massive warships like stars being born. Then the light faded, and ships were there. Human ships. Hundreds of them. They had appeared from nowhere, materializing in the exact gaps between council vessels with precision that should have been impossible. How did they do that? Korath demanded. No drive technology can be that accurate. Nothing can drop out of faster-than-light travel in such confined spaces, so officers had no answer. They were staring at their screens with expressions of disbelief. The human ships looked nothing like the vessels Korath had studied. Those had been small, simple things, barely capable of crossing between stars. These were different. They were angular and dark, built from metal that seemed to swallow light. They looked like predators waiting to strike. And there were so many of them. 400 at least. Korath's fleet still outnumbered them, but not by as much as before. And the way they had arrived, appearing exactly where they wanted to be, suggested capabilities the Council had never imagined. A communication request appeared on Korath's display. Human origin. He accepted it. A human male appeared on screen. He had gray hair and calm eyes that showed no fear at all. Behind him, Korath could see the bridge of a warship far more advanced than anything in Council records. "Admiral Korath," the human said, "I am Admiral Christopher Hayes. I believe your Council has a message for Earth. I thought it would be more efficient to deliver our response in person." Korath forced his voice to remain steady. "You have made a terrible mistake, human. You are surrounded by superior numbers. Your fleet cannot win this battle. I understand your mathematics," Hayes replied. "Allow me to show you why they do not concern me." He nodded to someone off screen. Throughout the Council fleet, alarms began to scream. Every human ship had simultaneously locked weapons onto targets. But not the targets Korath expected. They were not aiming at the ships around them. They were aiming at something far away, right now. Hayes said, "My ships have target locks on every major population center. Every shipyard and every food production world belonging to the Council member species. Our weapons use quantum slip technology. They can reach those targets in minutes, no matter how far away they are." Korath felt his blood run cold. "That is not possible. I assure you it is very possible." Hayes leaned forward slightly. "We have also activated defense networks throughout human space. Networks your sensors have never detected because we did not want them to. Weapons platforms hidden in asteroid fields. Automated systems buried beneath the surface of our colonies. If your fleet attacks us, you will face far more than 400 ships. A new voice cut into the transmission. High Chancellor Zareth was broadcasting from the council chambers, his 6 eyes blazing with anger.
You would threaten to kill billions.
Zareth demanded. You would commit genocide? We would defend ourselves, Hayes corrected calmly. Every species in your council has conquered younger civilizations. You have taken their worlds, stolen their resources, and absorbed them into your empires. That is the history of the galaxy, but it will not be our history. We will not submit. We will not surrender. And if you force us to fight, we will make sure you remember the cost forever. Silence stretched across the communication channels. Korath looked at his tactical displays, at the weapons locks covering targets across council space. One command from the human admiral, and billions of council citizens would die? What do you want? Zareth finally asked. Hayes smiled slightly. I want you to listen carefully to what Ambassador Cole is about to tell you. He has a proposal that I think you will find very interesting. And High Chancellor, I suggest you listen with an open mind, because the old way of doing things is finished. Today, the galaxy changes. The communication shifted and Ambassador Daniel Cole appeared. He was standing in the council chamber again, but this time he did not look afraid. He looked like a man who held the fate of civilizations in his hands. The Galactic Council gave humanity a choice, Daniel began. Submit or be destroyed. You expected us to bow down like every other young species before us? But you misunderstood who we are. Paused, letting his words echo through the chamber. Humanity does not seek war. We never have. We came to the stars hoping to find friends and allies. Instead, we found an ancient system built on domination and fear. A system where the strong crush the weak and call it natural order.
Ow.
Every alien, I was fixed on him. We reject that system. We reject your ultimatum. And we reject the idea that younger species must live under the boot of older ones. He stopped and faced Zareth directly. But we did not reveal our strength to start a war. We revealed it to establish the foundation for something new. Something better. A relationship based on mutual respect instead of fear. He pulled a small crystal from his pocket and placed it on the speaking platform. This contains our counterproposal. Humanity will not join the Galactic Council as a servant. Instead, we propose a new framework. We call it the Galactic Compact. Equal standing for all species, regardless of age or size. No forced integration. No conquest of younger civilizations. Free trade and mutual defense, with boundaries that cannot be violated. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up. Korath watched from his bridge, his scales rippling with emotions he could not name. In 10,000 years of galactic history, no species had ever challenged the Council like this, and somehow, impossibly. These humans might actually succeed. The galaxy would never be the same. The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Ambassador Daniel Cole stood at the center, surrounded by representatives of 47 alien species. But unlike his first visit, when he had felt small and afraid, now he stood tall. The fear in the room was no longer his. It belonged to them. Humanity does not want war, Daniel said, his voice clear and strong. We have never wanted war. When we first left our planet, we dreamed of finding other civilizations. We imagined trading knowledge, sharing discoveries, working together to explore the universe. We came to the stars with hope in our hearts. He walked slowly across the chamber floor. His footsteps echoed in the silence. Instead, we found an old order that feared anything new. A system where ancient empires crush young species before they can grow strong enough to challenge them. You saw our youth and assumed it meant weakness. You gave us an ultimatum because that is what you have always done. Daniel stopped and looked up at the rising tiers of alien delegates. Some would not meet his eyes. Others stared at him with expressions he could not read. Now, you were wrong about us. Not because we built secret weapons and hidden fleets. though we did. You were wrong because you did not understand what drives humanity. We are survivors. For millions of years, we fought against predators that wanted to eat us, against weather that wanted to freeze us, against diseases that wanted to kill us. We fought against each other too, and that was our greatest shame. But through all of it, we learned one lesson above all others. We turned to face High Chancellor Zerath directly. We learned that we would rather die free than live as slaves. Zerath's 6 eyes burned like orange flames. His forearms gripped the edges of his platform. You speak of freedom, but you threaten destruction. If your weapons fire, billions will die. Daniel agreed. And that is exactly why they will never fire. Because now we both have something to lose. Now we are equals. He pulled the data crystal from the speaking platform where he had placed it earlier. This proposal offers something that has never existed in the galaxy before. True partnership between species. Not the stronger controlling the weaker. Not ancient empires treating young races like children. Real cooperation based on mutual benefit. You ask us to abandon 10,000 years of tradition, said Delegate Veressa of the Luminare Collective. Her body glowed with soft blue light, and her voice sang like music. The council structure has maintained peace and stability across the galaxy. Peace for whom? Daniel asked gently. Stability for whom? Your species. Yes. The founding members of the council. But what about the Kellery, who have served your empires for 3,000 years without ever being given a voice? What about the Venthan, whose homeworld was taken from them before they even developed space travel? What about the dozens of young species who live under council rule, never allowed to grow into what they could become? Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Daniel had touched something that many delegates preferred not to think about. We have been watching from the shadows, Daniel continued. Learning your history, studying your cultures. We know the truth that the council does not speak aloud. You are afraid, not of us specifically, but of change. You've built this system because you were terrified that someday a young species would rise up and challenge you. So you made sure they never got the chance. He spread his hands wide. But you cannot hold back progress forever. Change is coming, whether you want it or not. The only question is whether it comes through cooperation or through conflict. High Chancellor Zerath was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice heavy with an emotion Daniel could not identify. And if we refuse your proposal? If the Council rejects this galactic compact, then we return to our space, you return to yours, and we watch each other across the void, Daniel replied. But I should tell you that we have already shared the basics of our technology with other species, the Kalari, the Venthan, the Morith. They are very interested in leveling the field. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some accused Daniel of trying to start a civil war. Others demanded to know how humans had contacted subjugated species without the council knowing. Zerath slammed his fist against his platform again and again until silence finally returned. You play a dangerous game, Ambassador Zerath said. I play the only game available to me. Daniel did not flinch. Humanity wants to be part of the galactic community. We want trade and friendship and shared exploration, but we will not accept the role of servants. We will not let you put governors on our worlds or reduce our fleet to nothing. We are not children to be controlled. We are a species with as much right to the stars as anyone in this chamber. He pointed at the data crystal. That proposal represents the best chance for a peaceful future. Read it carefully. Discuss it among yourselves. You will find that we ask for nothing unreasonable. Equal treatment. Respect for boundaries. An end to the practice of conquering younger species. These are not radical demands. They are the basic foundations of any fair society. Daniel turned and began walking toward the exit. Then he stopped and looked back over his shoulder. One more thing. My fleet remains at the edge of council space. They will stay there until I return with your answer. I suggest you do not take too long deciding. Admiral Hayes is a patient man, but even his patience has limits. He walked out of the chamber without waiting for a response. The debates that followed lasted 3 days. Throughout that time, the human fleet hung in space like a silent warning. But more powerful than the military threat was the news spreading across the galaxy. Word of humanity's counterproposal reached every inhabited world. Younger species that had lived under council domination for millennia began to hope for the first time. Protests erupted on a dozen planets. Old resentments, long buried, rose to the surface. The council members realized they faced a choice that went beyond one defiant species. They could adapt to a changing galaxy, or they could face rebellion from within their own empires. On the 4th day, High Chancellor Xerath summoned Ambassador Cole back to the chamber.
Ow!
The council has voted, Xerath announced. His voice sounded tired, like a man who had not slept in days. We accept the framework of the Galactic Compact. The old order ends today. Daniel felt his heart pound, but he kept his expression calm. The council is wise. The council is practical, Xerath corrected. You have forced us to confront truths we preferred to ignore. Perhaps that is not entirely a bad thing. He descended from his platform and approached Daniel until they stood face to face. Up close, Xerath was even more terrifying, a tower of black skin and burning eyes. But Daniel did not step back. You have surprised us, Ambassador. In 10,000 years, no species has ever challenged the council and survived. You have not only survived, you have changed us. That was always the goal, Daniel said quietly. We did not come to conquer. We came to find a better way. Xerath made a sound that might have been a laugh. Perhaps we have underestimated you in more ways than one. Perhaps having humanity in the galaxy will prove to be exactly what we needed. He extended one of his 4 hands. Daniel reached out and took it. In that moment, history changed. The old order fell. Something new began to rise. The humans had answered the council's ultimatum with one of their own. And against all odds, against thousands of years of galactic tradition, they had won. But winning the argument was only the beginning. Now came the harder work of building a better future, and Daniel Cole was ready for it. 1 year had passed since the signing of the Galactic Compact. The galaxy that Daniel Cole had walked into as a frightened ambassador was almost unrecognizable now. Everything had changed. And humanity stood at the center of that transformation. Admiral Christopher Hayes stood on the observation deck of Horizon Station, the first truly interstellar outpost that humans had ever built. It floated at the crossroads of a dozen major trade routes, a meeting point for species that had once been enemies. Through the massive windows, Hayes could see hundreds of ships passing by every hour. Valtherian trading vessels with their distinctive curved hulls. Luminary science ships that glowed with soft blue light. Kellari freighters carrying goods that would have been forbidden under the old council rules. Dr. Maria Santos stood beside him, watching the endless dance of vessels against the stars. Her dark hair had more gray in it now, but her eyes were still bright with the same fierce intelligence. Did you ever think we would see this? She asked. Hayes shook his head slowly. I hoped. Every day for 40 years I hoped, but I was not sure. I spent my whole career preparing for war. I am still not entirely used to peace. It is not perfect, Maria admitted. There are still factions that hate us, species that think we overstepped our place, old powers that resent losing their control. There always will be. That is the nature of change. Hayes turned to look at her, but we proved something important. We proved that strength does not have to mean domination, that power can lift others up instead of crushing them down. A new ship emerged from faster-than-light travel nearby. It was a beautiful thing, combining human engineering with luminary design. The first truly collaborative vessel, built by teams from both species working side by side. A year ago, such cooperation would have been unthinkable. The children being born today will never know what it was like before, Maria said softly. They will grow up thinking this is normal. That humans and aliens working together is just how things are. Good, Hayes replied. That is exactly what should happen. Progress means each generation builds on what came before. They should take peace for granted. That is the whole point. communication signal chimed. Hayes accepted it, and the face of High Chancellor Zeroth appeared on a nearby screen. The Valtharian leader looked different than he had a year ago. Some of the tension had left his features. He almost looked relaxed. Admiral Hayes, Zeroth said, I wanted to inform you personally. The last of the Council's occupation forces have withdrawn from Kalari space. Their homeworld is free for the first time in 3,000 years. Hayes felt a warmth spread through his chest. That is excellent news, High Chancellor. They have asked to send a delegation to Horizon Station to thank humanity for what you have done. Zeroth paused. I must admit, when you first challenged us, I thought you were reckless fools who would destroy everything. I was wrong. You have made us better than we were. You pushed, Hayes said. You chose to change. The credit belongs to both of us. Zeroth's thin lips curved into something like a smile. Perhaps. Perhaps. Regardless, the galaxy owes humanity a debt. We will not forget it. The communication ended. Maria raised an eyebrow at Hayes. From threatening to destroy us to thanking us, quite a journey. That is diplomacy, Hayes replied. Daniel would be proud. At that moment, back on Earth, Ambassador Daniel Cole sat in a small cafe in what used to be called Portland. Rain streaked down the windows, and the smell of fresh coffee filled the air. Across the table from him sat his daughter, Emma. She had just graduated from the new Interspecies Relations Academy, a school that would not have existed 2 years ago. They assigned me to the Kellery homeworld, Emma said, her eyes bright with excitement. First human diplomatic attaché they have ever had. I will be helping them rebuild their government, establish trade relationships, all of it. Daniel smiled, remembering his own nervousness before his first council appearance. It felt like another lifetime. You will do wonderfully, he said. Were you scared? Emma asked. When you stood in front of the council that first time, when you told them no? Daniel thought about it. The vast chamber. The burning eyes of High Chancellor Zeroth, the knowledge that 3,000 warships waited to destroy Earth if he said the wrong thing. Terrified, he admitted. But I kept reminding myself why I was there. Not just for humanity. For everyone. Every species that had been told they were too young, too weak, too small to matter. Someone had to stand up and say enough. It happened to be us. Emma reached across the table and squeezed his hand. You changed everything, Dad. We all did. Daniel shook his head. Every scientist who worked on Project Prometheus, every soldier in the Shadow Fleet, every citizen back home who believed we could be more than just survivors. It was never about one person. It was about who we chose to be as a species. As outside the cafe window, the sky was beginning to clear. A patch of blue showed through the gray clouds. Somewhere up there, beyond the atmosphere, a new era was taking shape. The old empires were learning to share power. Young species were finding their voices for the first time. And at the center of it all were the humans, not as conquerors, but as the spark that lit the fire. They had been given an ultimatum. Submit or be destroyed. Instead, they had chosen a third path. They had refused to play by the old rules. They had shown the galaxy that there was another way. On Horizon Station, Admiral Hayes watched ships from a dozen different species dock at the same ports, their crews walking the same corridors, sharing meals and stories and dreams for the future. On the Kulari homeworld, people who had known nothing but servitude for 3,000 years were learning what freedom meant. On Earth, young people like Emma Cole were preparing to take their place among the stars, carrying with them the values that had brought humanity this far courage, determination, the stubborn refusal to accept that things could not be better. The Galactic Council had tried to blackmail humanity into submission. They had expected fear and compliance. Instead, they had received defiance and a vision of something greater. Their reply had sent shockwaves across the galaxy, shockwaves that were still rippling outward, changing everything they touched, and this was only the beginning. Daniel finished his coffee and watched his daughter head off to prepare for her new assignment. The future she was walking toward would be full of challenges. Old hatreds would not disappear overnight. Building a fair and equal galaxy would take generations of work, But for the first time in history, that future was possible. Because a young species had refused to bow. Because humans had dared to imagine something better and then fight to make it real. The stars were waiting, and humanity would meet them as equals, not as servants, not as conquerors, as partners in the greatest adventure the universe had ever known. The end of the old order had come, and from its ashes, a new dawn was rising, a dawn that would shine across every world, every species, every corner of the endless dark, a dawn that had started with a single word, no, and that word had changed everything.